Thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. This is an installment in our Wise Wellness Month, where we are dedicating the entire month to the 8 pillars of whole self wellness. I'm Stevie Carr, founder of Wise Wellness Guild, for some of the new faces that are joining today. But what we are really dedicated to this month is giving you a little bit of a taste on some really approachable ways to enhance your own self-wellness in, kind of these crazy times. And how do we take all of this investment in ourselves that we've really probably put on the back burner for a really long time, but maybe even more so during this pandemic, and go into this next normal with a commitment towards, advancing ourselves through whole self-wellness. And one of the things that we really heard throughout the course of a lot of the different speakers through this month is the consistent theme has been that you will invest in what you value the most, and you will divest your time and always make excuses where you on things that you don't value. And I think that I really want to encourage everybody on the call today is just to really think about what are some key areas of your life that you can take a moment and just reflect on. What are you going to do to start to prioritize yourself? Because everybody here today, your biggest and most valuable asset is yourself. You cannot help others. If you are flailing, if you are beat down, we cannot break the glass ceiling if we are not strong enough to punch. And I think that is where I've today had the pleasure of introducing 2 incredibly powerful women in their own right. I've come to know through this Wise Wellness Guild journey, and in different capacities. I know that Kayla and I met, through the wellness circuit, if you will, here in Cincinnati. But it's just really amazing because she has been an entrepreneur in her own right from the beginning. I mean, you've really kind of blazed this trail and helping people find an approachable way towards nutrition and finding ways to make it less daunting, and that you don't have to be hungry to be healthy. I mean, it's about filling yourself up with real goodness, and it's about being realistic, and that it doesn't have to mean, being so strict, but it is about consistency. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really, really encouraged for Kayla to talk about that, a bit more, as well as, she's got so many areas of, her experience goes far and wide. One that I more recently have become privy to, which I am just really excited to learn more on, is milked nutrition, which you'll talk about. And that in particular, at this point, knowing that becoming a new mother and moving into that stage of your life can be very daunting, and it is with very little information, despite how much information actually is out there. And I think that nutrition is one that always feels like a big guessing game for women who are expecting, and then what happens afterwards. So she will speak a little bit about that. And then I met Melis when we were just both, she was further along going through People's Liberty with Roya, and we met in a Taste of Belgium and around a booth with my friend Vanessa, and Megs from Keep Her Wild was there, and who else was there? There were there was a couple of other people that were there, and we just like hit it off immediately. And her concept of what she's trying to do to reframe what immigrant life looks like and how we embrace culture in this city, but also in this country, I think is really, really powerful. I've had the opportunity to engage with her on a personal level, as well as, meeting her mom, who, arguably is the star of the show, right? She's like just read my fortune and is just so beautiful and amazing. And we're so blessed to have somebody like her in this community. But I think that, the beauty of what you've got going on is that you are a full-time P&Ger, which is not an easy task, as well as operating your own business. And You are, you know, just doing it, and it's amazing, and it comes with ebb and flow, and you are very active in your fitness routine, and you're doing all these things. So today, what I'm saying is, guys, you've got two powerhouse females that are going to be speaking to you today about food and nutrition, about fitness, and what fuels them. Not only coffee, that is really a coffee, but also like, let's talk about what actually keeps us going and fulfilled from a purpose standpoint. So I will stop talking. Thank you so much for all of us. And I guess if you've got any questions along the way, you can type them into the box and I will read them, or just come off of mute if it feels like a natural pause. This is intended to be a day of dialogue and conversation, and I have a feeling that this won't be the last time that we all get together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. Appreciate you. Kayla, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So, wonderful intro, Stevie. Melissa and I sat down the other day and, kind of brainstormed on, okay, what do we want this hour? What do we want this session to be about? And really, we were like, we obviously want you guys to take some tangible takeaways along the way on, what this means for you in your own personal space within food and fitness now, in the future, and just kind of like making sense of it, within kind of the craziness of what's going on. So I actually pulled, hopefully a relatable quote from one of my favorites, and not necessarily the food or fitness industry, but Mindy Kaling is someone that resonates with myself a lot. And I seem to like go to her when I'm like, okay, kind of like bring to what I'm thinking. So she has a quote that says, "I do idiotic things all the time and I say crazy stuff I regret, but I don't let everything traumatize me. A scary thing I have noticed is that some people really feel uncomfortable around women who don't hate themselves. So that's why you need to be a little bit more brave." And so, what I really take from that is a couple of different things. First off, within the world of food and fitness and just wellness, there's a lot of shame and feelings of just not uplifting messages, right? And so, what Melissa and I were both kind of engaging with the other day is that, we want to give you guys the confidence to feel as though you're the experts in your own arena of health and nutrition. And not every one way of eating is going to be the same way or pattern for anyone else. I get questions all the time from different people like, hey, I saw this, I want to do this. Or I heard about this new thing, like, where can I try it? And so, finding out, within what you're doing right now, what you feel confident with is kind of like that first step in what you're doing well. So we actually kind of wanted each of you, if you could right now, to type into the chat box, just one word, two words, maybe like a phrase about something, that you feel really confident in, that you're doing well within, this world of food or fitness and wellness, whether that relates to food or physical activity, or just, I'm getting out of bed at, a reasonable, whatever it is, something that you feel that you're doing really well in this space, if you feel so moved to do so.
Yeah. Oh, we got one. I see the chats coming in. Tons of daily walks. And I just want to say, like, guys, this is a time of uncertainty and there's a lot going on. So if the only thing you are doing is breathing, that's totally cool, because we're all going through a collective trauma right now with COVID and this pandemic. So just the fact that you guys are getting up and like living your daily life, I think you guys should give yourself a lot of credit for. And also give yourself grace if like you're listening to this whole conversation and you're like, I don't have time for a 30-day meal plan right now because there's a pandemic going on and I have to file for unemployment and I have to take care of my parents and I have to do this and this and this. Just give yourself some grace. And I just wanted to say that, like, thank you just for joining this and like taking one step in front of the other, for just like investing in yourself. And I love seeing these comments come in. 10,000 steps per day, workouts, waking up and getting busy, drinking lots of water, hiking. This is
Not
amazing.
worried about how other people feel. Yeah, that's really where it is, giving yourself grace. I mean, that's a word that I say over and over again, is like giving yourself that grace, because guilt can be one of those things that just spirals, and the domino effect can roll out from there. So we're gonna jump into a little bit of like some food and coffee pairings. But before we hit that, I wanted to kind of reiterate this, that you have to find what works for you, whether it's within movement, within getting steps, yoga, whatever it is. Anecdotes and clinical trials and different things that you read on the internet are interesting, like data points, as we might say. They provide evidence, but that doesn't reflect how you're going to respond to this given pattern of movement, or different types of nutrition information you might sort through. So just kind of knowing that some things like that are out there might have their limitations, and that's why really self experimentation and adhering to, like, again, what suits you, what fuels and moves your body, is really where you need to kind of start that like inward reflection of all of this, this journey of health within what you're going through right now. So Melissa and I were chatting, and we thought it would be fun to do a little bit of like a discussion on different types of coffee pairings. And I know that we were going to talk through, again, kind of the Turkish coffee, like rite of drink, right?
Yes. Okay, so I know a couple of you guys have had Turkish coffee on here, but not everyone has. And so I just wanted to give a quick like 101 of like what the heck this is, who I am, what is Ruya, what does it mean? So Ruya is, I have a bag right here. I think what Stevie did an amazing job promoting it with the whole giveaway and everything. So Ruya started essentially, just quick spark notes, about fall of 2018 with People's Liberty as a grant to change the narrative of immigrants living in America, cup by cup, conversation by conversation. And it was really inspired by my parents, who came here literally like, this is vulnerable story, no money, no plans. Literally, they were just going to come here, have their kids be American citizens for the opportunities that America allows with education. And then they were going to go back to Turkey, but they ended up staying. So they figured out a life, which is like very much just going from job to job to put food on the table. And the headlines that I saw around immigrants was not what I saw in my daily life. So like, a lot of my close friends ended up being immigrants growing up, just because we could relate on a very like core level on our beliefs and value system. But the headlines in the media that was being told around immigrants was mostly negative. And so essentially what I wanted to do through Ruya, which translates to dream, is to change that narrative and to show the hospitality, the hardworking, ethic of immigrants here in America, and basically just be a positive voice for all of those people that sacrifice everything in their homeland to come here for a better opportunity. And so, I mean, that's why I'm working 2 jobs right now, is to also like just be an example and lead by example that it is possible to achieve your dream while also supporting the people that you love. So what ended up happening is me and my mom ended up brewing coffee for people in Findlay Market, if you guys have come. And the health benefit of Turkish coffee is that it actually has 2 times more caffeine than a regular cup of espresso. It's unfiltered, the grounds are left in the cup, and it's really just a time for you to have a conversation, especially with the fortune-telling aspect. So that's a little bit about Ruya and what Turkish coffee is. But just keeping that in mind with some of the pairings that Kayla and I actually brainstormed was actually really interesting, because you don't want to always be eating tahini cookies with with your coffee, which is usually what I do, but that's for a different day.
But yeah, so I mean, tahini cookies, delicious. One thing that I will actually kind of say too about coffee in general is that coffee and tea both contain what we call tannins. Tannins are antioxidants, and they have an anti-inflammatory effect in our bodies. One thing that you do want to make note of those is that they can actually inhibit the iron absorption of certain foods, especially within the plant-based sphere. So if you know you're someone that is at risk for anything like within iron deficiency, they do actually recommend that you consume that within an hour before or after consuming coffee or tea. So one caveat with that is that if that's someone that you know you're in that, maybe demographic, to avoid that. But we'll send this out with Stevie for post attendance. But energy bites are one of my favorite ways to combine healthy fats, protein, carbohydrates. So a couple different variations that I've shared up on my page, on my website, but peanut butter, a little bit of honey or agave, rolled oats, ground flaxseed, and then either cacao nibs or semi-sweet chocolate chips. Super good, super easy. You could also use tahini or some other sort of spread or base, especially with nut or dairy allergies. A really good way to kind of, again, ball up some of those good things, give you that like 2:30 punch when you're craving a Snickers or whatever it might be. Totally good to kind of honor that. Dates or even dried fruit, superfood enriched trail mixes are really nice. Again, what you'll notice among all of these different pairings is that, I guess, kind of in my like sphere of like recommendations, again, I wouldn't say I'm ever pushing like one food or one food group or one way of eating, but what I am encouraging is the composition of at least one or two different food groups every time you're sitting down. So in some ways, I'll say never eat a naked carbohydrate, because we want our insulin, we want our body to react in a way that's not necessarily like that quick burst and then that fall of blood sugar. So pairing that protein or fiber or even those healthy fats along with the carbohydrates kind of help your digestive system utilize and balance those nutrients along the way that they want to utilize them. Another favorite recipe that I will make and usually actually keep in the freezer is dessert bark. So you can either use like a Greek yogurt or some of like the dessert hummuses that are out there, either mix or melt them with some of the coconut oil, spread them on a cooking or a baking sheet, crumble up whatever you want in there, whether that's graham crackers, it could be more nuts, pretzels, anything like that, kind of spread that across and freeze it and then break it apart and crunch it out for kids, or I mean, pretty much anyone of all ages would enjoy it. Another favorite that you can actually use your tea or your coffee in is a chia pudding. So chia seeds, combine that with some brewed tea or even brewed coffee, about a 1-to-1 ratio of chia seeds to coffee or tea, or even mixing in a little bit of water. Pair that with some fruit, crumble up some of the dessert bark or Greek yogurt over top of that, and you've got yourself a nice little combination of, again, really healthy omegas and then the fiber from those seeds. So different ways of doing it, but again, just kind of it, makes it more of like that whole experience within what
I've never heard of chia seeds. That is really cool. I've
Really?
never heard of putting chia seeds in your tea.
Oh yeah.
Or coffee.
Make like a chia pudding with it, but like almost sort of like that bubble tea like effect where they absorb the water.
Yeah.
Sneak it in, get it in, however. Yeah.
And we also talked about this, but I wanted to dive in. What is like, okay, real talk, how many cups of coffee or tea do you guys drink? Like, feel free to throw it in the chat, but I'm really interested on like time of day that people drink and how many cups they drink, because I drink like 2 a day, 2 cups in the morning. Okay. I do 1 in the morning and then 1 in the afternoon before a workout as my like pre-workout to like get hyped up. I don't know if Kayla, if there's like a scientific recommendation on like best times to drink caffeine like that, or when to stop.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was reading some of the chat. So, I mean, we were, within, again, best time for whoever it might be. Some people can't drink it on an empty stomach. Again, some of that might be due in part to the tannins that are in them or the acidity of them. But coffee is, if I were to give one pre-workout or something that I kind of do to like kind of get my system going, it's coffee or tea. None of the other fancy powders or blends or anything like that have ever really seemed to resonate. But again, knowing that it's a good natural source of energy has kind of been like my token source. I would say, did you say what is the maximum?
Not maximum,
Yeah.
but like, is there ever too much? I just sometimes go
When you
overboard.
start to feel it in your heart.
Yeah, listen to your heart.
Yeah, it starts to buzz. Yeah, that might be it.
I feel like my eyes get really dilated. Like I've been in meetings and people are like, you're talking really fast and your eyes are really dilated. And I'm like, oh, I had my third cup of Ruya today. Should laugh back a little bit. But I think that one thing that as we were talking to, who was I talking to? Maybe it was Amanda Valentine or something. She was talking about her challenge with, like, she found herself using coffee as like a suppressant, like a hunger suppressant, and how that can kind of get a little dangerous. Like understanding your why of using it and then understanding like how it should be kind of consumed, I think is really important.
Yeah, because it definitely has more of that filling effect than just water or, even tea in general. I think that, like, when you think of coffee, it's like it's a meal for some people in the morning. Like they'll have their coffee, they'll have it with some milk, and then like they're set for the day. So it's definitely knowing, and I'll tell people and clients and different individuals that I work with that if for every cup of coffee you drink, I encourage at least 2 glasses of water, since it is a diuretic and it will kind of cause that enhancing effect of going to the bathroom. So that's kind of like my thing for if you're like, hey, I can't live on less than like 2 or 3 cups. Well, then that's, you're checking up the water slices when you get down to that, because again, you don't want to dehydrate yourself within that. So that kind of brings up another point on like when people dive into, like, I don't want to say like embarking on like a new trend or a new habit or whatever it might be. One thing that you have to think about is, do the positives of this outweigh the benefits? So okay, let's say that I was like, I am going to start, drinking, not even related to coffee, but like a new like recipe or new meal plan or something that you're going to introduce in your life, like, or even just trying a new food. Like maybe that food or whatever it is doesn't have the health halo or the associated, like, this is going to bring me more energy and all this and that. Well, does that food or that meal within your family, within your life, bring you joy and like kind of like calm or present, or maybe be like a form of self-care? Then that's something that you can definitely, like, again, do the positives outweigh the benefits in that realm. So
yeah, and that's what I've been kind of using as like so when I read this really interesting quote from a Russian philosopher, I can't remember the name, but it was there are some days that feel like decades, and then there are some decades that feel like days. And I feel like in this time of transition that I feel like there are decades literally packed into our days, like our daily days. Like there's so much change happening in such a short amount of time. And during this time of transition, I think there's a lot of people who are just like sitting and reflecting, right? Especially with stay at home. And like thinking about like, okay, what are my habits? What are my daily habits? What are my routines? What are my rituals? How am I talking to myself? How am I, like, when I look in the mirror, like, what are my thoughts? And I think like, this is what I've been doing, but like every morning I have my coffee and I take that time to like reflect and be like, okay, during this time of transition, like, what am I doing? Like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want my future to look like? And then, that's grounded in like my mom telling my fortune, like growing up, because that's a Turkish tradition. But like, this is something that anyone can do, like with Ruya and a French press, or just like, if you want to do Turkish coffee, feel free. But like, whether it's journaling or running, but like taking time to like just reflect during this times of transition, I think is one of the most important things. And just whether it's actual physical health or just mental health, or just combining the two with like drinking coffee and then going on a run, I have found to be like one of the biggest things that has kept me going is like, okay, no one knows how to deal with this, but like, let's take a moment and just reflect and like connect here on how we're all feeling, just for my own mental health sake. I don't know if you've done things like that, Kayla.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, some, you know, a lot, I don't want to say a lot of what is out there in the nutrition world, but it can be brought back to, I don't want to say common sense because that's like shunning it a little bit, but a lot of it comes down to behavioral adoptions and how we can goal set and build up some of these habits for the positive or for the negative. And so sometimes, you know, I kind of joke that I'm not necessarily a nutritionist. It's more of like a counselor and like kind of like evoking some of those emotions in those times to just like bring it back to yourself and just see what really like where you're looking to go ahead in the world.
Mhm.
MK, I just noticed you asked in the chat, is tea a diuretic as much as coffee? So typically not. I would say the diuretic content of whatever beverage it is related to the caffeine content, more so than anything. So especially if you're drinking a decaf tea, I wouldn't necessarily count that in the same way of that diuretic effect. With that said, though, we did kind of want to open this up. If you guys have questions within the world of fitness, food, entrepreneurship, coffee, feel free to type it into the chat box because we, again, wanted this to kind of be like an open conversation. If you even wanted to unmute yourself and kind of chime in and, you know, burning questions or non-burning questions, anything of the,
Super personal.
yeah.
We're willing to get vulnerable. Ask us anything. I'm personally interested on this collagen powder that you put in your coffee. Who was that? Janet Hill events.
Oh, sometimes, yeah.
Like what? I've never heard of that. Do you like it? Does it taste good? What is it? How does it change the consistency? I'm interested in that.
It doesn't, the one I have doesn't have any taste to it, but I've noticed that for my knees, it seems to be doing something well. And I don't drink a lot of coffee. I drink 1 cup maybe, that's it. But I just want to tell you, I went to Astor last year to celebrate my birthday on the day that you were there, and you must hold my fortune.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. I think I remember you. Did you video record my mom?
Yeah, I did.
That is hilarious. I remember you because I was like, holy crap, my mom's being video recorded, and if her fortune doesn't come true, I feel like he's gonna sue us.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And I don't usually drink coffee late in the day, but it was delicious. And the dessert that you had was spectacular, which I usually don't eat either, but we just had a blast. It was a lot of fun.
Aw, thank you for saying that. That feels like so long ago, Astor. Oh my gosh.
Melis, I use the collagen powder also.
Okay.
And I started using it I noticed my hair was thinning. And I think
okay, my hair's thinning and I'm 25 and I'm freaking out.
Right.
Should I get it?
You can get it on, yeah. I mean, you can get it on Amazon or Costco has it. It has no flavor, but it really helped with some of that hair loss I found.
What brand do you use?
Vital Proteins, I believe is the name. I'll text it to you.
Okay.
I would love to hear, Kayla, like your thoughts on this, only because I've heard so many conflicting things, in particular on like this whole internal beauty type of thing and like how people like your philosophy on it. So would love to hear more.
Yeah, so definitely. I'm glad that this is brought up because it's something I could probably talk about for hours on end. So in general, okay, anytime you eat something, our body absorbs, digests, and then kind of redistributes things, right? So without oversimplifying things, we know that like from a fat standpoint, so I'm talking fats, not protein, but there's the common quote out there that eating fat doesn't make you fat. We know that when our body absorbs, digests, and kind of redistributes things, it goes through a lot of chemical processes. The same can be said for things like protein, for things like collagen. So when we were to consume anything that has collagen, our body is going to absorb, digest, and then redistribute that. Those collagen molecules will go through, again, that same digestion and absorption as some of the other protein molecules that we eat, whether it's in chicken or plant-based sources of protein. So not to discredit or to say that it doesn't work for people, because it does, and especially within gut and within joint health. But within the majority, of anecdotal and even research studies, it's shown that, again, eating collagen will not necessarily go straight to your body's sources of collagen.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kayla.
Yeah.
I'm Gina Macarone. I'm a general surgeon. And I just wanted to chime in and say you're absolutely correct from a physician standpoint. There's no studies to say that it works, and like you said, it gets digested. So anyway, I just wanted to chime in and say I agree.
The thumbs up. Yeah. So where I think that collagen, where is the place for it? It is a really, in most cases, most brands, it's a very, I would say, like, clean would be, again, using quotes, good source of protein. So I don't want to pick on women, but in a lot of cases, women out of, male and females are typically not eating enough protein in some cases. So a lot of us have maybe shifted to plant-based diets, or are just, I don't know, it's in our makeup in some cases. And so to kind of anecdotally give experience of my own self, a few years back, I went on a complete vegan diet for Lent, and I was like, let's try it. I usually try a couple of different diets as they come out, or I hear about them, just to, again, be able to offer wisdom and experience in coaching terms. And so after being vegan for about like 2 or 3 weeks, I noticed the same thing. Nails were thinning, hair was like thinning, my skin felt pretty lumsy, and just like my body was out of whack. And I think in a lot of cases, again, not to like over, dramatize that, but in a lot of cases where the collagen is helping different individuals, it's because of the lack of protein in general. So we know that collagen makes up a lot of our connective tissue, as does just a good, robust source of protein. So if it's something that's like, again, fueling your day, starting it off in the morning, and you wouldn't otherwise get it from somewhere, like, great. That's, again, going back to the why are you eating it. Putting that in there is, again, that good source for you, but it's expensive. It's definitely not cheap. So if it could be something like a Greek yogurt, or, even just using like some of the fortified milks that are out there, A2 milk, different brands that, again, are adding a little bit more within it. But my, I guess, preference to like the whole food approach is that the protein should be the ingredient. It's not a protein bar. It's not, some isolate chopped up and like maneuvered in some way that tastes like chalk. But again, it's that whole food, that protein that's like, it's itself is the ingredient, is the best way to kind of whole picture do that. But yeah, so MP, like you said, if you're not eating a lot of protein, it's just not something that like maybe is palatable to you, or you feel as comfortable like prepping or whatever it might be. Adding it into your coffee is definitely like a way to make sure that you're getting it in, for sure. Any other questions on collagen, proteins, powders?
I have a question, but it's a very specific question in terms of like, how do you know how much you should be consuming, like, personally? Because I know it's a very personal thing, like, for levels, and like, what's the best way for people to figure that out?
So good question. So see a registered dietitian. One way of doing it. There's a lot of information out there on the internet. I would say the best way to kind of, okay, I want a number, I kind of want to know what range within I'm working with. If you were to take your current weight in body or range in pounds, take that, either multiply by 1 or multiply by 0.8. Some will even say 0.6 is like that lowest number, anywhere from like 0.6 to 0.8, depending on your activity level, and kind of going from there within, again, grams of protein. How I like to conceptualize that is within, like, I don't want to say the gold standard, but a serving size of protein is like, let's say 3 to 4 grams of chicken breast. That's anywhere from 20 to 25 grams. So if you just take that, and let's say you're uncomplicating this, you just had a chicken breast for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and maybe half a chicken breast as a snack. That would get you up into about that 100-gram range for the day. And I'd say for most women, if you're shooting for around that, it might seem like a lot, but again, that's kind of, again, making sure that you're getting, an adequate source with each meal and a snack. So not a very glamorous answer, but it doesn't have to be a glamorous way of, of consumption.
That's a great answer. And I do love the whole idea of seeing a registered dietitian. Like, it seems like something that you kind of get sent to the principal's office for. You're like either struggling with a weight issue, or you've made the decision to, you've got a major, you've got a food allergy or something like that. And I guess my point is, like, it doesn't have to be that. And that's the mental mindset that I'm kind of going through now is, getting, like, if you were trying to, achieve your peak performance as an Olympian, you wouldn't try to do this on your own, right? Like, there's people who have coaches and people who can kind of get you. You do the work yourself, but you do have some guardrails and people kind of helping you. And it also doesn't mean that, like, all of the things that you love go away. It's about like little small habit changes. And so I know that there's other questions, but I just really wanted you to answer that for me personally, because I've always wondered that.
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal question. And it's funny. So earlier today, I got a text from someone who she had just gone and gotten her lab values drawn. And she was like, hey, I was low on vitamin D. I just started supplementing and now I'm getting headaches. And like, what is this from? And she's like, she also has a background and she's well-versed in nutrition. And she's like, I tell my doctor every time I leave that I wish he had a registered dietitian here. She was actually taking well over the daily recommended dose for vitamin D. And since vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, we're not going to pee it out the same way we would extra B or C vitamins. And so too much of some of the fat-soluble vitamins can actually cause some of these side effects that you are like, okay, I don't know what this is coming from, but I did notice that the two of these kind of go together. So kind of within that segue, I often encourage people, it might not be because you're trying to lose weight or because you're trying to like, hit any number of goals, but just keeping a food diary every so often is nice to kind of notice patterns, to notice mood, to notice, digestive changes, different things that might be causing you, you don't kind of realize that it might be related to food, with energy peaks and valleys and different things like that. So, being as diligent as you would with when we use, I don't know, maybe some people still do this with their checkbooks where they balance their checkbooks. I don't do that, but same sort of thing within kind of just making note and checking the boxes. Are you getting 3 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? Are you getting 4 servings of protein throughout your day? Are you getting enough water? A lot of these different, very simple, as I call them, minimum daily actions are kind of slipped off the radar. Like when you think back to your day, when I sit down with people, I'm like, what did you have today? And if you had to think back what you had, like even just 2 hours ago, most people forget. So writing down, kind of keeping a list and just, again, checking the boxes. It's not necessarily some like crazy calorie counting or like meal plan, whatever. Simplified, just getting the basics in and making sure that, again, you're fueling yourself appropriately.
That's awesome.
Anything else? Questions within food, nutrition?
I know there was a question on from Ashley.
Oh, Ashley, yes. So cortisol, yes. Definitely a time where we are feeling obviously kind of at our peak of stress, whether it's, having the kids at home or, working from home, any number of things with that. So within kind of calming our body within like the cortisol levels, there's within what I have studied and seen, there's not like a direct food link between like any number of certain foods and like directly lowering cortisol. But in the realm of anti-inflammatory foods, so we know things that are higher in antioxidants like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. Even coffee and tea, antioxidants have a lot of the plant polyphenols that kind of help suppress some of that calming in our body. Will kind of in time lead to lower cortisol levels within obviously doing other things within our lives like stress reduction techniques. So antioxidants from fruits, vegetables, whole grains, again, kind of can't emphasize those enough, not necessarily even for like their fiber content, but for the benefit of kind of calming all of those free radicals in our body and almost like putting a blanket over like the crazy spasness that might be happening within some of the cells there. That's a good question.
So I have a question about like this. It got triggered from like the cortisol levels, but like just like emotional eating.
Yeah.
You're feeling a lot of things. Like, how do you not eat all the chocolate in the world?
Good question. So within the world of emotional eating, so obviously, I don't want to say this again, but it kind of goes back to the why that we're eating. And so I have a really good document that I'll share with Stevie that goes over the why do I eat, what am I eating, and kind of takes you along a spectrum of like going back to the purpose of it. Like I will say this 100 times. It's okay to eat because you're even when you're not hungry. Like blanket statement, that's fine. But if there is something else that will kind of that you can do that will kind of fill that same void, like tap into that. Give yourself, a 15-minute break to just like unplug and like jot down the feelings that you're having, or go for a quick walk. Oftentimes, if we can kind of like put that out of our mind for like 5 minutes and the craving goes away, then great, like move on with that. If you're still like focused on that, go with it. Again, like I said this before, the guilt kind of like ripples. And so if you just have something, enjoy it, like feel satisfied with it and move on, then that's kind of in that like, you can just enjoy it without the guilt. Kind of on like a psychology standpoint, a lot of researchers, psychologists have kind of studied the effect of the first bite and the last bite being the ones that we remember the most. So it's oftentimes all those little bites in between that are like lost within like the movie or whatever work we're doing. So if you can really just like focus in, I'm not telling you to only have like 2 bites of something, but if you can really focus in and be mindful of what you're eating, that first, that last, again, all the middle ones are kind of like, again, lost in whatever it is. So kind of taking that approach helps within like I know I want this, but I don't want to like finish off the bag or whatever it is. So being kind of aware of how you present it to yourself is really important as well.
I also think that like when I eat by myself, I don't know if any of you guys feel this, but when I eat by myself, I just like scarf it down and I just eat as fast as I can. And now with like restaurants being closed, we can't like go out to eat with friends and like talk and eat slowly and enjoy the meal. So another thing I've been doing is just like during meals is like setting up calls so that I like take time to talk to people and eat, so that it it goes through slower.
It's funny
like
that you say that, because some people are almost the opposite in that, I often have to encourage people to make eating the action, because if they're distracted eating, especially if it's not like they're, maybe not being mindfully attentive to it, we're just not paying attention to our hunger cues. So it's kind of interesting that you're on that the other way of like, it is a social thing and it's something that you want to slow down. And so I think, that just kind of brings us back to the beginning of that everyone is different within how they approach this. So for you, if you notice that that's how you kind of be more present and you slow down and you're more attentive to those hunger cues, that's what you have to do and manipulate your environment to kind of reflect that.
And I think just speaking to that a bit of the understanding it. Like, I think paying attention to it, the self-awareness piece is something we talk a lot about with this community. Do you even know what your why? Do you even know why you're doing things? Do you even understand the motivations of your behaviors? And do you understand the indicated outcome of what are you trying to achieve? And I think that so many of us are high performers in our careers and in our pursuit of this certain type of lifestyle, that the unfortunate thing about things like food and fitness are that we were told, there's all of those things in the system that are like, take this pill and you can like lose, all this weight, and it doesn't really matter what you put into your body. And I think that at least that was me growing up, right? It was like, I don't even remember what diet pills were like, and I knew that exercise was important, but it was not about longevity of life. I think that when you start to look at the statistics of Alzheimer's and dementia and like the long-term compounded choices that we make, we know that food has so much of, food and sleep arguably are like the two things that really matter the most at the end of the day. And then all of the other pieces that kind of go into that, as well as like moving your body. And so I guess if you were to, I'd love to hear like your, like the biggest pet peeve of like, or from both of you maybe, of what's the biggest myth that you want to burst, like thing that you think like everybody believes that you're like, stop, like immediately.
Mm-hmm. Kayla, I have one. I don't know if you
You go first. I have a couple that I need to sort through.
Mine. So I mean, I work in marketing at P&G is my day job, and like I love it, but there are just so many buzzwords that I like know about, even in like, so I'm in Olay, like skincare. So like when we talk collagen, that's a buzzword. And then seeing it on like popcorn, I'm just like, what? Like, how is it in an Olay product and then in popcorn? Like that doesn't make sense. So I feel like the biggest thing I want to burst is like these crazy trends.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like if you're like, I also think psychologically, like if you consume something and you think it's good for you and you end up feeling better, I still think that's great. Like if you put collagen in your coffee and you feel good after, like to me, that's a win. That worked. So even if it like mentally helps you, but I think people just need to, what Kayla was saying, go back to their why on like, has anyone done any, like Googled this scientifically? Like, is eating collagen popcorn like good for you? I don't know. Like, I just, I want people to like, just be a little bit more of like, is this true type of
that whole activated charcoal like fad that went through that, like, is that even like, there's just so many, because you see it, right? And like all the diet teas and like all of that, like what's happening? Like what, like just get back to the basics of like, what about just like however many thousands of years ago they didn't have activated charcoal water like that. So yeah, I guess like the diet fads and everything that's fascinating.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm like guilty of it, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this just because like it's fun, it's trendy. It's like, I just want to try it.
Yeah.
But then that goes back to your why. Like, I'm just doing it to like kill time and try something new. I'm not doing it to like lose 20 pounds, right?
Yeah. It's really funny that you say that, because I remember when I saw the Smart Food collagen popcorn at the store and I took a picture of it, I put it up on my story and I was just like, I really like this brand, but why are you doing this? Like,
yeah,
absolutely, this doesn't need to have it in there. So that's a frustrating point. Definitely one of my pet peeves is when people are throwing things into items that they don't need to be there in the first place. Like, if you want to have popcorn, just have popcorn. It's a great whole grain. It's a nice snack. Enjoy it, whatever. I would say, so that being pet peeve, another pet peeve of mine, oh man, there's a lot. I would say when people, man, there's a lot. I think number one within kind of fitness is like running yourself to the ground within thinking of, I don't want to again like point to females, but that like you have to do 1 million hours of cardio every day to, look and feel your best. I've definitely shifted within the past couple months within how I'm working out and staying active, and it's definitely been probably like a 80% reduction in cardio, and I've felt and looked and feel like better than I ever have. And so, there used to be this mindset that if you weren't drenched in sweat and dripping and like whatever, you were not effective within whatever that time is. I think I've also kind of hated hearing a lot of times where people, if they can't give themselves like an hour a day, then that's not worth it at all. Any little bit of movement, feel good is where you're at with that. Another, and I'm sorry that if anyone says this, but I can't stand to hear cheat days or cheat meals, because you associating cheat or guilt, again, along with the food is just like it's not a cheat. It's a hamburger or it's a piece of pizza. Like, have those nutritious foods along with your day, balance it all out, incorporate it, eat the whole spectrum. But, to say that you like earned the cheat day or the cheat meal, like, I don't know, food without those sort of labels is definitely like something that I try to promote and push and just get out there, because food is food and it's not a cheat or a win or whatever it might be.
I love that. That's so nice. And I actually want to ask you about like the fitness thing.
Yeah.
Now that gyms are closed, did you like buy weights? Like, what are you, what are you doing? Do you just do planks all day?
I guess to say my cardio or my movement within that has been limited to, I've been either walking or running the steps at Nippert, and maybe another like run within the week or walk, a lot of walking. But then I was lucky enough that my boyfriend stole some weights from one of the gyms that he is a strength and conditioning coach at. So
Cool.
I was grateful to have that, because I know that weights out there are like either not existent or they're really expensive right now. But before that, I was putting textbooks in duffel bags and using those, or paint cans, or like whatever it was, and just like finding body weight movements and different things like that.
I know we have like 3 minutes left. I do think it would be worthwhile. I would love to do a whole session on like debunking myths around like workout standards, because I know like Chrissy's on here and I know Melis, like you guys have kind of opened up my philosophy, and actually Alexis Sewer's on here too. She was the first person that I knew that started strength training. And for me, I grew up as a dancer, and like the number one thing that you did not want to do was get like bulky, right? And so like the whole concept for me of like having muscle is like, so it's still kind of terrifying, especially being as tall as I am. Like I want to be lean, right? But she really blew that open. And so I think it would be worthwhile to have a whole separate conversation around like, Melissa, what you haven't even spoken about, like what you kind of your fitness journey and path is too. On like, but being able to just do things that aren't stereotypically like, running or yoga or different things like that.
Yeah. For another conversation, I can get into having to cut weight like 2 days before a taekwondo competition, but we'll save that for another time.
That'd be great.
I love that.
Does anybody else have any burning questions? I know like there's artificial pumpkin spice, big okay. And so then we've got so there's a question on essential oils. I'll tell you what, Erin, we will answer that in the that in the recap email. How about that? We'll have a little bit more on that. I wanted to close this out. The winner actually of this, she just jumped off. But I know, actually Erin Steigerwald, Erin Glutz is the winner actually. So I'll make sure I let her know. She had to jump up, but I appreciate her joining the time, and she, like I said, just left. And Erin she's a member of WISE, so I'm thankful for her joining. So she's going to remember get a Ruya beanie as well as a bag of Ruya coffee, and then some other beauty goodies inside of there as well. So yay!
If you guys ever want Ruya coffee, they're on ruyacoffee.com. So
my gosh, so good, and just so Insta-worthy, might I say. Obviously the branding is fantastic, but I love the way it looks up in my pantry. I usually like take it out of the bag and put it in a little thing. Oh yeah, absolutely. The cool thing is, for everybody else who maybe didn't catch this, but we purchased, this in larger quantities and to be able to fulfill all of the boxes. But every bag purchased right now, a bag is going to healthcare workers on the front lines at the UC Health emergency department, which is pretty amazing because they are doing Yeah, so this is just absolutely cool. And then I think Chrissy, who is actually going to be leading, it's a great segue for us. So a couple of last minute things. Wednesday is actually with Chrissy Grody. We're going to be talking all things about, fit for career growth and thinking about our occupational wellness with Chrissy. She's in talent acquisition and also is on What the Fit podcast. She is the owner of that. And there's actually a really, on both of these amazing women have been featured on her podcast. So I will make sure that I actually add those links as well so you can learn more about both of them. So thank you all so much again for leading this today. This was an amazing conversation. I have so many questions for both of you still as follow-up. So I think what we'll do is, as a recap, we will put in their information is here on the page. You can email either one of them directly. Make sure you follow them on Instagram. And then as a part of the recap, I would love to just hear more about your questions. And maybe there's something that we can do as in terms of just an ongoing having you guys kind of pop in and share on some of these topics that people might have some burning questions on, like essential oils, what's up about that? Or, I thought we had a really great dialogue today. So thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you guys, and looking forward to seeing everybody on Wednesday morning at 9. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.